Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back on another video from Totally Not Mark, and today we are checking out ranking every fight in Dragon Ball Super. Now, one that I want to be ranked highly is Hit versus Goku, because it's a moment that just sticks with me in Dragon Ball Super. Like, forever, it's always going to be there. When Goku went Super Saiyan Blue, and then when Kaioken, on top of that, that was the most Dragon Ball Z moment within Dragon Ball Super. And I Goku versus Hit, boom. But don't know what other fights could potentially be high ranking within this. If we're talking, because it's Super, isn't it? I was gonna say, like, movie wise, the Frieza Goku fight's pretty good. The animation really dipped in the series, didn't it? But I don't know. Let's just get into this.
We are now 2 videos deep in my series of ranking every single fight in Dragon Ball. First it was Dragon Ball, the classic series, then it was Dragon Ball Z, and today we are ranking every fight in Dragon Ball Super. The rules are the same. Number 1, the fights need to be canon. Number 2, they also have to take place on screen.
Wait though, what's canon in Dragon Ball Super? Because Mark did a whole video on the confusing canon of Dragon Ball Super. Because the manga does things and the... Whoa.
Number 3,
there are no rules.
There are no rules.
Number 4, for this particular series, I'm just gonna focus on the anime for Super. I'm serious.
Right, okay, just as I... Alright.
I'm already doing the TV show and the films that follow. The last thing I need to be dealing with right now are the pre-Super films. So in the event that there are 2 versions of a given fight, like Goku versus Beerus on King Kai's World, for example, instead of ranking them both, I will just choose the best one and rank that. So with that massive caveat out of the way, be sure to subscribe, because right after this, I'll be ranking the top 20 fights across the entire series. I wonder what number 1 will be. But for now, it's time for Dragon Ball Super.
Let's go.
For transparency, I'm going to have to go through this series a little bit differently than I have with the others. Mostly because Dragon Ball Super alone has more fights than both classic Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z combined.
I can believe that. It was literally just like, let's give the stupid non-thinking people what they need. Just punches. Lots and lots of punches.
Does that equate to quality? Almost certainly not, and so I will be blitzing through the particularly dense sections. Most notably, the Tournament of Power, where this particular video transforms from a nerdy undertaking into an exercise in cruel and unusual self-inflicted torture.
Battle of Gods! Oh dear.
We've got a lot of bottom tier here.
The Super Hercule fight!
Of the 23 fights in this arc alone, 7 of them are in bottom tier. Those are Goten and Trunks versus the Giant Snake, Vegeta versus his training robots, Yamcha and Piccolo training in the background technically, Vegeta versus a giant squid, Beerus and Boo versus Mr. Satan when they poke him away, it's pretty funny, War versus Oolong, again a background element, and Super Saiyan Mr. Satan versus not Beerus. Some of these, admittedly, are some blink and you miss them moments, but there are others like Goten and Trunks versus the Giant Snake and Vegeta versus the Giant Squid that are just plain boring. And so what I think sets this arc apart from the others in the series up until now is that it was designed to be a movie. And so all of these other fights feel hollow and superficial, like they're there just to pad the story. For instance, E-tier alone has 8 entries. The weird caveman alien things versus the dinosaur. Goku
it's a lot of
versus
stupid,
Goku's Kamehameha.
not shouldn't be that kind of fights.
Boo versus Beerus. Gotenks, the Z-Fighters, and Gohan versus Beerus. Mr. Satan versus the alien Dogman. Goku versus Krillin. It's one punch. Mr. Satan versus Great Saiyaman, and Goku and Vegeta versus Whis. None of these are particularly spectacular, but just like that, 15 out of the 23 fights in this arc are of quite a low standard.
Wow.
However, Battle of Gods is great, and thankfully, we have some great entries to consider moving forward. Episode 2 introduces us to Beerus properly, and from it we get this dance with this strange alien. It's surprisingly decent and introduces the concept of the Super Saiyan God Dream. Furthermore, Beerus' subjugation of King Vegeta and his slap on Bulma demonstrates what sort of impact a character like him can have on a series and the personalities that populate it. Also, Goku versus Mr. Satan's fake punch is funny as shit, and I'm putting it in here too.
Mate, it is though. That is one of the most funny moments in Dragon Ball, like the way he just like and then dips to grab the tractor before floating over the top is just absolutely amazing.
All of these go into D tier. From there, we can skip past C tier and go straight to B tier, surprisingly, with Goku and Vegeta versus Sleeping Beerus. Much the same way I adored Mr. Satan versus Majin Buu in the prior video, this is one of the many reasons episode 18 of Dragon Ball Super is one of my favorites. It is so funny. And pushing past that, we can dive straight into A tier with Goku versus Beerus on King Kai's world. Yep, you heard me right. And of course, Vegeta versus Beerus. While the fight between Goku and Beerus in episode 5 is memed into oblivion due to how it unfortunately looked,
God,
I do think that structurally it's a much more interesting clash than the film offered. Whether intentional or not, the way Goku cycles through the various forms he's acquired creates a clear ego he needs to overcome. One that almost stands in contrast to his presentation of the transformations in the Buu saga. Only this time it, doesn't work. Plus, it's not like the fight looks bad from start to finish in the anime anyway. The Super Saiyan 3 stuff to this day I think looks great in sections. And switching gears to Vegeta versus Beerus now, what can I say that hasn't already been said? This is another brilliant moment in vulnerability from Vegeta brought on by his love for his wife. It is awesome. A tier. And finally, we have Goku versus Beerus round 2, and that is going into S tier. I'm torn between which I prefer more, the movie or the anime version. On one hand, the movie has the more iconic moments, but on the other, the anime's fight duration feels more like a Dragon Ball bout, so to speak. At any rate, I think there are some really strong moments of characterization for Goku in this, some creative use of environments, and a ton of visual spectacle. Resurrection F is
Is that Maximum the Hormone?
Later on the battles, and there are fewer bottom tier entries too. Making up Resurrection F's bottom tier is Piccolo's sacrifice, again for Gohan, versus Frieza, and a short cutaway shot at Goku and Vegeta training on Beerus' world in episode 23. Moving on to E tier, we have a bunch. Goku versus Vegeta, episode 20. Piccolo and Gohan versus Tagoma. Gotenks versus Tagoma. Z Fighters versus Ginyu Tagoma. Gohan versus Ginyu Tagoma. You've seen the pattern here, the Tagoma stuff. To be honest, I actually do love the idea of Ginyu coming back for one last hurrah and how this...
I really liked that as well. It was like, we haven't actually forgotten, and then yeah, just do it, why not?
Story frames Tagoma as Frieza's punching bag is a fittingly dark way to elevate a minor antagonist for some mid-arc conflict. Kicking off D tier, however, we have our third and final cutaway to Goku and Vegeta training. There's also some immediate characterization for Frieza following his resurrection through lasering Tagoma, Gohan's immediate loss to Frieza, which created a nice bit of tension, and of course, Vegeta versus Ginyu Tagoma, which rounds out his collection of Ginyu Force scalps. In addition to those, squeezing their way into C tier, we have Frieza versus the Frieza Force in the movie, which again was a striking piece of characterization for the Tyrant, and the brief but massively controversial and impactful Goku versus Sorbet. The film version never bothered me personally, as I'm more of a story guy, but I do think the anime took that criticism and rectified the issue by powering down Goku to base right before. I think that works better.
That works better.
Time for some really solid fights now. B tier has 2 entries. The Z Fighters versus the new Frieza Force from the film, which is filled with wonderful character moments, Master Roshi's experience and guidance for the likes of Krillin, Gohan's protective nature, and of course Piccolo's imposing presence. It's all wonderful stuff. Similarly, Vegeta versus Frieza finds its way into B tier also. Had this been longer or more substantial, it could have been a solid A or
it's
even
still
S
quite
tier
satisfying seeing Vegeta just slapping around.
Still though, it is plenty cathartic seeing Frieza realize in real time how truly screwed he was.
Mate, and having Vegeta do it is just like, yes.
Literally on his knees, thanks to the Saiyan Prince. And finally, we have Goku versus Frieza from the film, and I considered putting this into A tier, but after removing my distaste for the film, as a fight on its own, this is one of the best. S tier. While the film is plagued with pacing issues, a lack of plot, and bizarre structure really, the actual fight of Goku versus Frieza is brimming with some of the best visual storytelling Dragon Ball has to offer. The entire solution to the fight against Frieza is communicated through the action and combat itself, while also coming packaged with the single best punch in the modern series.
Yeah, oh yeah. Here we go.
Finally, we are out of those pesky movie recaps and onto something new and brilliant. Oh god, no. While this arc might only have 5 bottom tier entries in Beerus vs. Goku and Vegeta when they're in weighted clothing, Beerus vs. Champa, Goten and Trunks versus the aliens, Vegeta versus alien copies, Gotenks versus copy Vegeta, it has also the most E tier entries thus far by a wide margin. 9 entries. While some of them are short moments of combat, like Gohan versus Piccolo, Jocko versus Frogman, Goku versus Monaka, Frost versus Hit, Pan versus the Pilaf Gang, you know, you get the picture. There are other fights that were meant to be more, but ultimately didn't hit the mark for me. Fights like Goku versus Botamo, which felt both awkward as well as a weak start to the first tournament in 2 decades for the series. And of course, we have Goku versus Copy Vegeta. I will, however, say that the English dub's use of Brian Drummond for Jelly Vegeta was an inspired choice that did elevate this considerably for me. Thankfully, outside of Botamo, the tournament has a relatively high standard, all things considered. Monaka versus Hit being the second lowest shouldn't come as a surprise really to anyone given its length, but for what it is, I think it sticks the landing. D tier. Piccolo versus Frost also finds its way into D tier. For me, it just wasn't as good as I thought it should have been. Coming in at C tier, we have Goku versus Frost. Despite there not being a lot to it, one thing I do love about its structure is its use of dramatic irony to pull the wool over our eyes as audience members. Goku's positioned as this godlike figure of dominance for obvious reasons that we're all aware of, but Frost isn't, going as far as to offer him advice midways through the fight. But Frost still had his number. Well, okay, he cheated, but the fact remained, no one at home saw that coming, and I know that because I saw people talking about it and no one had a friggin' idea. Vegeta versus Frost similarly falls into C tier, mostly because by this point we were excited to see something other than Frost, and for him to get defeated by the same prince no less was plenty cathartic. Also in C tier, and perhaps surprisingly, I'm putting Beerus dressed as Monaka versus Goku. It's just a whole mess of fun and requires the whole gang to come together to distract Goku. It's a fun premise. Also, the camera panning to the group and Poir being Beerus is so funny to me. And finally, to round out C tier, we've got Vegeta versus Hit. There's not a lot to this fight, but what it does do really well is establish the Rubik's Cube that is Hit and the techniques he relies upon. That mystery element held my attention and built a palpable tension leading into the subsequent round. Now, moving on to something a little better, we've got Vegeta versus Vegeta finding its way into B tier. There's not much I can say about this other than that it's a really solid traditional fight with just enough stipulation to make it interesting. Also, Vegeta's weakness being insults is funny as hell.
Yeah, that was quite clever. I did like that.
Which brings us to the final 2 entries from this arc. Vegeta versus Kaba is an easy A entry.
Oh yeah, definitely. That is absolutely spot on. It's absolutely class. Vegeta just knowing what to do to get him riled up as well is just genius. Absolute genius.
What it lacks in complexity and choreography, it more than makes up for with character development for both Vegeta and Kaba. There are some truly strong moments in this exchange, and it's one of my favorites from this tournament. But not the favorite. That accolade goes to Goku versus Hit. Again,
here we go. Come on. Come on. S tier. Just for the Kaioken moment. He said he's basing it off of like attacks and moments. Come on.
Truly Dragon Ball fashion, the final battle ranks the highest, though I'm conflicted about whether I should put this in S tier or not. The first half of this battle is easily S tier. I love the way Goku conserves his energy and relies on his instincts to figure Hit out. It is so fun and interesting to watch while also being perfectly in keeping with Goku's character. However, once that section subsides, it's just a lot of meaningless fighting until the big Kaioken moment. And don't get me wrong, that moment is incredible, but is that moment enough to elevate the second half of the fight? Maybe. Screw it, I'm putting it in. S tier.
Ah! Yes, 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 yes. Ah!
Okay, so this arc has considerably more fights to deal with.
That's
okay because there's more good stuff in here than the Universe 6 tourney. In total,
it's true. Majority of the fights in this are great. It's just this arc, man, started off so great and still was great in the middle, even if the time travel was kind of confusing. But it was just the last part of it, man, really messed it up, didn't it? So dumb. I loved this arc, and then the last couple episodes, it was like, what are you doing? Why?
This segment of the series has 58 fights,
Whoa.
19 of which go straight into bottom tier. These include, but are not limited to, 3 separate alien caveman bouts.
Yeah,
Beerus versus Champa, Goku and Trunks versus Earth's army, Zeno nuking Trunks' timeline, as well as several other much smaller conflicts, most of which are entirely forgettable, and I will be going back to doing just that with them now. E-tier, unfortunately, isn't exactly light on numbers either. Totaling 16 entries, these again include, but are not limited to, Vegeta versus Whis from episode 47, Trunks' flashback versus Dabura, Goku Black versus Trunks
really,
in episode 51, Vegeta versus his training robots, as well as a dozen permutations of Goku Black and Zamasu offering serviceable antics. If you are interested in my scores for all of the 35 bottom and E-tier entries, you can pause now while the editors throw them on screen.
Right. Let's quickly do this. Goku Black versus Countless Cities. Oh, okay, yeah. Caveman Alien. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Trunks and Goku versus Future Human Army. Right. Mai versus Goku. Oh, okay. Yeah, oh my god, there's loads. Vegeta versus Trunks versus Goku Black versus Trunks. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay.
Alrighty, now that we've got that out of the way, let's move into D tier, which has 7 entries. Vegeta versus Goku Black round 1, Goku Black versus Chi-Chi and Goten, Trunks versus Goku Black and Zamasu, Goku and Vegeta versus Fuse Zamasu, Arale versus Vegeta, and this might surprise you, Trunks versus Fused Zamasu. The final major fight of the arc. It is trying so hard to be emotionally powerful and poignant. The animation is solid and the artwork is crisp, but my god, this is insulting in the context of the story. Even if we ignore the scaling of this, and sweet baby Jesus, do I want to do that, this episode treats Deus Ex Machina as an Olympic sport. A spirit sword? Absolutely not. This fight manages to get into D tier for its sentiment and cool visuals, nothing else. C tier, additionally, is quite populated.
Although Mark did make it make sense. I love the story that Mark did in the manga of when Trunks gets blasted by Cell and dies, obviously, doesn't he? And it's like, ooh, what if he went there and he got a kind of inkling for the spirit bomb and he sees King Kai and then he's brought back and then it's like he has an understanding of it and then, yeah. Love it. Absolutely love it.
It's like Goku Black killing Bulma and Beerus' Hakkaiing Zamasu get in on their sheer wow and cool factor alone, much the same way others in the series have. However, other fights like Goku versus Trunks, Goku versus Zamasu, Hit versus Goku, and Goku Black and Zamasu versus Goku from episode 57 all make the cut for being solid fights overall. I really love how Goku caught Trunks' sword attack again to prove to him that he's got what it takes to save his timeline.
Oh yeah.
It's a nice nod to their first meeting back in Z, I think. Also, Goku's fight with Krillin, while short, tells a nice story of doubt between that bout and Krillin's eventual clash with the ghosts from his past. It's a surprisingly emotional story, and I still to this day think back to Krillin lamenting that he's not like Goku. Which leaves just 8 fights left in the arc, higher than the midpoint C tier. Now I think I can mostly lay that at the feet of this arc having way too much jumping back and forth between timelines. That middle part is rough to get through. Well, okay, actually the ending sucks also, but you get my point. B tier has 2 entries. Goku versus Zamasu.
Mate, that fight's so good. This fight's so good.
Black round 2, and Goku versus Fuse Zamasu. I'm so sick of saying Goku and Zamasu. These fights are so fun. Goku versus Zamasu in Black is classic cool guy
so
Goku,
good.
But my favorite between these has to be Goku no-handsing Fuse Zamasu after an earth-shattering full power Kamehameha. Which brings us to A tier, and we have 4 entries for this.
Nice, that is decent. Right, brain's gone. What are they?
Let's get the non-controversial ones out of the way first. Goku versus Goku Black from episode 50 is so bright and fun compared to all the others.
It's great. It's full of so much confusion as well. And then it's like, what was it? When Goku's hitting him in that, and then he's like, Goku Black's registering it, and he's like slowly understanding how to use Goku's body because of the encounter. I thought that was boss.
I love the crisp artwork, and the choreography is really solid considering how badly the studio was struggling at this moment in time. Also, with Goku Black blasting the time machine, it created plenty of tension to enjoy. Similarly, Vegeta vs. Goku Black Round 3 is everything you want from a classic Vegeta bout. Plenty of mouthing off and getting his revenge on the psycho that ruined his kid's life. I love this one. Conversely, Trunks vs. Vegeta from episode 54 finds its way here because of how thematically strong it is.
Yeah, this is cool, because doesn't Trunks have that moment where he's asking Vegeta to go Super Saiyan 3 and he just laughs because he's like not seen blue yet?
Having never grown up with his father, Vegeta finally teaches Trunks a valuable lesson. That no matter how strong you think you are, you can't rest on your laurels. It's tough love, done right, but this next one, I feel is going to get me in trouble. The final A-tier entry for this arc is Fuse Zamasu vs. Vegito. It's a really fun fight, but it just didn't hit the S-tier mark for me in terms of story or animation.
I mean, I do agree. It's good, but it's not like... It was kind of lacking that final moment.
A-tier is still super strong regardless, and final Kamehameha is sick as all hell. And finally, we have S-tier, and there are two fights from this arc that reach that for me. The first is Goku Black vs. Trunks from episode 47 and 48. This is up there as the single greatest villain entrance to the series.
Yeah.
He fake-out kills Mai and forces Trunks to flee into the past, creating even more tension. It is a dramatic affair from beginning to end, and it is, for me, up there alongside Raditz vs. Goku and Piccolo as one of the all-time best intro fights to any arc in the series. And finally, we have Goku and Trunks versus Zamasu and Goku Black. From a tension standpoint, it ticks all the boxes. Black reveals he has pink hair, Zamasu joins the fray and reveals...
Yeah, the same Rose was like, oh, okay, alright.
He's immortal. Vegeta is down for the count. Plus, the choreography and animation for this one is stellar across the board.
Good.
Naotoshi Shida, thank you very much.
Boom. Universal Survival!
Universe Survival portion is the final segment on this list that has any semblance of sanity to it. So, enjoy that. Let's begin with bottom tier, and oh boy, there's a lot of them. Of the 33 fights remaining prior to the Tournament of Power, 12 are bottom tier.
That's like nearly a third.
Minor stuff like Goku versus some carjackers and other such minor cutaways and scenes. In terms of E tier, we've got a few more there too. 6 to be exact. These were more substantial and, in some cases, just plain old bad. Stuff like Roshi and Co. versus the Phantom enemies with Yuki and other minor showcases therein, it's just not very good.
Yeah, a bit
that
weird.
Roshi episode specifically even got a complaint filed against it. Again, if you want the full list to bottom tier and E tier in this section, pause now.
Alright.
Moving swiftly along, we have 6 more for D tier. They include Goku versus Toppo, Boo versus Goku, because I was simply not expecting Skinny Boo to be as funny looking as he did.
It was
Android
so cool to
17
see,
versus
though.
Goku,
I want it
Goku
again.
versus Whis, Kaba and Caulifla versus Kale, and finally, those 2 punches Goku and Frieza share upon his arrival to Earth.
So good.
Great stuff. C tier turns things up even farther, and the first 3 fights I placed in there were the preliminary tournament bouts
good
involving
fights.
Basil, Lavender, and Bergamo. Each of these fights offered something new to enjoy and a different dynamic to focus on. Boo's dominance, Gohan's strategy and lacking ability, and Goku's reputation. They each made their respective fights both entertaining and distinct. Furthermore, Gohan's training fights were interesting too, with Gohan versus Krillin acting as the vehicle that demonstrates Gohan's got a lot to learn still, Piccolo versus Gohan acting as the foil that uplifts his character from where it once was, all the way to Gohan and Piccolo versus Goku and Tenshinhan acting as the payoff for that training. All of these are easy C-tier candidates for me. Coming in at B tier, we have 1 fight. Goku versus Krillin and Android 18, technically. I love this fight. I like the choreography, the environment, the weather, and I love how it ends with 18 backing up her husband by
Yes, she
reinforcing that
does.
this is a team battle, not a solo effort.
I love them as a couple. 18 and Krillin. Even, it's funny, isn't it? In the show and in parody with Team 4-Star, blah, blah, blah. They're just an awesome couple that you just love to see.
Power scaling be damned. Next up is A tier, and with it we have 1 entry again. Gohan versus Goku from episode 90. On top of this being a beautiful episode, it serves to reintroduce Gohan's character back into the fold as someone who has grown more responsible than he had been concerning his own strength in the past. I would have put this into S tier had this happened in the story much earlier, but as it stands, it just feels more like correcting a mistake than an addition to the story, if that makes sense. And now our final entry before we dive into the Tournament of Power is Frieza and Goku versus the Assassins from episode 95, and I am putting that into S tier. To be honest, I didn't think I'd be putting this into S tier until I revisited it, and man, it is so fun. On top of being some seriously authentic and exhilarating characterization from Frieza, it also positions him as this wildcard entry within the tournament itself. Is he going to betray his universe? Can we trust him? And on top of that, the action is fittingly twisted and dark. It is beyond exciting and compelling to see unfold. Oh man, that fight sure was amazing, but you know what it wasn't more amazing than? This damn cool new shirt we just launched. Myself and my team have worked on this design for a long time, and finally it's ready to release, so if you want to pick it up and support the channel, the link is in the description. The Tournament of Power.
The Tournament of Power.
Okay, so this is where this list turns into bullshit, and to prove my point, I will ask a simple question to you folks at home. Can you tell me who this is? Or heck, what about this guy? No? I didn't think so.
No.
The first one is Nink and the second one is Comfrey, by the way. And that's the issue I'm running into with the Tournament of Power. Practically every scene you can think of has other fighters like Nink fighting people like Comfrey in the background. Because this all takes place in less than 50 minutes, there's no telling which fights are new and which are old. This is all to say that we can go one of two ways with this. We could take my limited but still extensive list that I have right now, or I could rank the entire Tournament of Power like I did the final of the World Martial Arts Tournament from the Buu Saga, because if you think about it, this one too is a free-for-all. I decided to go with Plan A, so if you have an issue with it, take it up with Nink and his friends, I guess. But okay, let's talk numbers. I counted 241 fights in this tournament. That is more than Classic Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, Battle of Gods, and Resurrection F combined.
Whoa.
But here's the kicker, right? Over 120 are bottom tier.
No.
Another 32 are E tier, which means 66% of the Tournament of Power's fights aren't worth discussing here today, unless you're a massive fan of Nink. And I'm not hating if you are. Well, actually, no, there is one fight worth talking about. Vegeta versus Toppo lands in E tier for me, and I know that that'll ruffle some feathers, perhaps. But look, it's there for the same reason I hated Piccolo's sacrifice in Resurrection F. It is cheap and vapid. I mean, Vegeta pulling the sacrifice card again? Absolutely not. But yeah, if you want my full bottom tier or E tier list, it's too long to put on screen now, so I'll just chuck it into the community tab after the video goes live. Moving on, it is D tier time, and finally we have some substance. 19 fights that actually tell stories and hold interest. Wow. Universe 9's early elimination, Roshi earning Vegeta's respect, Goku mentoring the Universe 6 Saiyans, and Krillin channeling early Dragon Ball energy through throwing his shoe onto Majora's nose. It really does feel like a perfect callback to the Bacterian thing, but, you know, with the roles reversed. Plus, we got our first real taste of Jiren's threat level when he bodies Hit and Majikayo respectively. And for those interested in the full D tier list, pause now. Now,
never mind.
Concerning Jiren, there's actually two reasons why I'm sort of focusing in on and granting points for his show of force and strength. Number one, it is literally 98% of his character, so it's important. And number two, the Tournament of Power is less a story and more of a sporting event, really. Sure, I am bummed as all of you that they ditched Goku's reputation crisis plotline, but treating this like a sports tournament created something kind of magical. I mean, just look at Latin America's reaction to this. This
so
is like
cool to
a
see.
World Cup and WrestleMania main event rolled into one.
Well, yeah, like, was the episode, I can't remember which one, it just broke Crunchyroll. I remember, like, I was staying up every night. I think it was like 3 o'clock in the morning over here. The episodes actually aired, and this Frieza Goku teaming up against Jiren with Android 17, just couldn't watch it. Could not watch it. I wanted to watch it and then record a reaction, a review, a discussion of it, but you just couldn't watch it.
And so I think it's fitting then that C tier and beyond is filled with fights capturing the best moments of our home team. Except for Krillin and Ten Shinhan. Tough luck, guys. Keep those bleachers warm. The Tournament of Powers C tier has 11 fights, of which highlights include Goku mentoring Caulifla, the unlikely Goku hit team-up, and episode 127's Masterclass where 17, Goku, Vegeta, and Frieza struggle against Jiren. Whether it's Frieza's rage-fueled charge or 17's refusal to quit, these moments perfectly set the stage. Plus, Gohan's humanity moment with Obni, Roshi's Mafuba clutch play, Vegeta exploding against Frost, and Frieza being an absolute wildcard, it's all great stuff. And keeping the Frieza train rolling, we go into B tier and we have two Frieza-centric bangers. Frieza vs. Gohan, episode 108, and Frieza and Gohan vs. Dispo. Concerning episode 108, that was pure tension through characterization. Frieza turning on Gohan for strategy reminded me of why he's my tournament MVP, and it's not even close competition, guys. And when Gohan returns the favor with Dispo's battle against Frieza, Frieza has zero issue making him the sacrificial lamb that he wants to be. It is a superbly strong character dynamic on show. Now, as we move on to A tier, the emotional heavy hitters take center stage. Roshi versus Ganos, or however you pronounce it, to this day is the single strongest emotional character beat in Super For Me. Roshi's final message to his pupils still resonates, and more than that, remains an important fixture of Goku's philosophy to this day. Additionally, Piccolo and Gohan versus the Universe 6 Namekians brings us full circle from the Saiyan saga. I've spoken on this a ton, but this is how you build off of Piccolo's original sacrifice against Nappa. Not by rehashing it again, but by demonstrating visually that the little kid he sought to protect all those years ago has become a capable protector in his own right thanks to him. Also in A tier is Android 17 and Frieza versus Toppo. I included this purely because Frieza was an absolute menace and it was entertaining as all hell. I just love that episode. And finally, Vegeta versus Jiren, episode 127. There is no other Vegeta fight like it, refusing to stay down while everyone else is beaten, then entrusting everything he has left in his life to Goku.
Giving away the energy, man. It's like, wow, Vegeta just did that. No way.
Chills. Which brings us to S tier, and within this section we have 5 absolute classics, so let's tackle them in order of appearance. Number 1, Goku vs. Jiren, Round 1. This is peak Goku spectacle, cycling through transformations, testing Jiren's abilities, Spirit Bomb backfirings, Ultra Instinct awakenings. Even Beerus is left speechless here. Every expression from the cold look Goku offers Jiren to his face to Jiren's genuine surprise when Goku leverages Kaioken to escape early on. It all makes this fight feel powerful and huge. Number 2, Goku and Vegeta versus Jiren from episode 122. This is Vegeta's finest hour in the tournament, I believe. Instead of throwing a tantrum due to being dismissed by Jiren, who's focusing on Goku, Vegeta stays calm, sees what Goku can't, and delivers the tournaments and perhaps even the best final flash in the entire series. The way he consciously goads Jiren into taking the blast head-on feels reminiscent of the strategic Vegeta we left behind following the Android 20 bluff. It's a really strong fight sequence. Number 3, Goku vs. Jiren Round 2, with episode 130 alone being the single best animated Dragon Ball episode maybe ever. These installments chronicle the enormously cathartic beatdown of the up until then insurmountable Jiren. Also, it's got mastered Ultra Instinct, so yeah, it's got that going too. Number 4, Frieza and 17 versus Jiren. Some of you might be surprised that this is here, but when Frieza's smug face emerged to save Goku alongside 17, I lost it.
Yeah, man, it's like something...
It's
something you never thought you were ever going to see, and then you were watching it, and it's just like... Oh my god, let it keep going.
Peak Frieza and the single best supporting fight of the entire arc. It is that good, and I go back to watch it all the time. And finally, number 5, Goku, Frieza, and 17 versus Jiren. This is the best fight in all of Super, and for me, it's not even remotely close. There's no flashy transformations, no crazy convoluted techniques. It is just grit, determination, an enormous amount of fatigue, and 2 mortal enemies working together, barely able to sustain their current power level. It is the perfect ending, and what a high note to conclude on. Dragon Ball Super Broly. Okay,
I was so confused. I was like, wait a minute, how is this still going? But alright. Was not expecting this.
All I have are 2 movies left to cover, so let's do this.
Oh, and superhero as well. Wow. I thought that was ending. I was like, why is there still 6 minutes left? Sick.
Broly is a great movie that I very much enjoy, and it has 4 bottom tier fights to log. Those are Paragus versus Kid Broly. It's a very quick exchange. Vegeta versus some Frieza Force soldiers in the spaceship. Whis versus Broly. And the Frieza Force versus an alien planet at the very end. There's nothing wrong with any of these, they just can't be ranked any higher. Next up is E tier, and we have in here Paragus and Beats versus some alien spiders once they arrive on Vampa, Broly versus Ba in his flashback, Paragus versus Ba in that flashback also, and Broly versus a Frieza Force soldier that was giving Chile a hard time. The reason I've ranked these higher is that they pull double duty. While the fights themselves are nothing really to look at, they serve to either introduce more character in the case of the flashbacks with Ba, or establish the environment.
Apologies, I was in work at 5 o'clock this morning, finished at 3, came home, and then just started recording this. I'm a tired boy.
Environmental threats with Paragus and Beats. Moving on to D tier, these include Paragus versus Beats, Paragus versus Broly with his shock collar, Frieza versus Paragus, Frieza versus some Saiyan snipers in the first scene of the film,
though.
And Goku versus Vegeta training. And they are all here because they represent quick but shocking crucial moments for the plot. I'm always a fan of action and combat facilitating story, and these do that beautifully. Goku and Vegeta dipping and leaving Frieza to pick up the pieces with Broly never stops being funny, and yeah, Goku versus Vegeta is there only because I had to put it somewhere, and E felt a little too low. C tier is where I want to put the most impactful moment of the series. Frieza versus Planet Vegeta as Bardock fades into space dust. The way the film presents this moment is stunning and huge, and I wouldn't change a thing about it. Hopping straight into B tier, we have Frieza versus Broly. This fight is used as a comedic backdrop or cutaway device to facilitate the botched fusion attempts of Goku and Vegeta. I am so thankful this happened because these fusion botches have been done to death, and using these failures not as punchlines anymore but as consequences that prolonged Frieza's own punishment was an ingenious decision. And the last 3 fights of this film all go into S tier. Vegeta versus Broly is every Vegeta fan's wet dream come true, and the way we hear Vegeta's internal monologue and thought process was extremely refreshing. Also, seeing Paragus react to Vegeta's Super Saiyan transformation was brilliant. Goku versus Broly takes a different approach though. While extremely well animated in its own right, this fight leans into Goku's humanity as he tries to reason with Broly once he notices he's not in his right mind anymore. And finally, Gogeta versus Broly is another instance where I might not be enthralled by the fusion itself, but from an animation standpoint, this is a high point
animation is
of
just
the film,
incredible.
possibly even the best animated fight in all of Dragon Ball, and interestingly positions Gogeta almost as a point of dread towards the end as Chile races against the clock to save Broly from his own wrath. Dragon Ball Super Superhero. Finally, we've reached the dumb name movie, and with it we have 2 bottom tier entries. Dr. Hedo versus The Prison, and yeah, I guess that counts, and Gohan versus Gamma 2. It is a blink and you miss it moment, which is why
not much goes on in that one.
In E tier, we have just 1 entry, Pan versus Piccolo.
Yay.
This is a really cute exchange, and I love seeing Pan getting to actually progress and do stuff. It just can't go any higher than this. Next up is D tier, and we have Goku versus Vegeta, Pan versus the Red Ribbon Army soldier that tries to pick her up at school, Gohan versus Gamma 1, Pan and Gamma 2 versus Carmine, and finally, Magenta versus Dr. Hedo. When it comes to the Goku versus Vegeta fight, it's very much a background element carried by the reveal that Vegeta finally defeated Goku, but in my mind, Goku's never really defeated Vegeta, so I'm not falling for that propaganda. Pan's knockout of a Red Ribbon Army soldier is hilarious, and her defeat of Carmine alongside Gamma 2 is great also. Similarly, Magenta versus Dr. Hedo is executed comedically well, with the linchpin being a callback to the robot Fly introduced at the very beginning of the film. It's a nice payoff. And to round things off, we have Gohan versus Gamma 1 there because I just thought it was a decent exchange. Nothing amazing, but it did enough to get here. Now, potentially controversial, I am placing the following into C tier from the film. Piccolo versus Gamma 2, round 1. The Gammas, Piccolo, Gohan, Trunks, Goten, and 18 versus Cell Max, and Gohan, Piccolo, Gotenks, Krillin, and 18 versus Cell Max. That's the Beast Gohan one. Acting as the introductory fight to the Gammas, Piccolo vs. Gamma 2 communicates Piccolo's strategic mindset very well while managing to establish Gamma 2's childish and light nature both through dialogue and combat. I enjoyed this quite a lot. However, I cannot say the same for the 2 Cell Max fights. While they pick up points for the amount of time dedicated to them and some cute character exchanges, they are, for me, the weakest of the canon fights that form a climax in the modern series. Moving on to B tier, we have Piccolo vs. Gamma 2 round 2, and I love the new Piccolo design. The dynamic between these two is very entertaining and the execution feels quite polished. And with that, we have our final fight of the film, and it's going into S tier. And that fight is Cell Max versus Gamma 2. For me,
Oh,
this
okay.
is far and away the emotional high point of the film and is easily the film's most surprising instance also. Having known nothing of these characters prior to this film, Akira Toriyama managed to establish a story where an android designed to believe it's a hero is forced to contend with the dubious acts that he's been manipulated into performing. But in a moment of genuine heroism, Gamma 2 doesn't hesitate to sacrifice his own life in order to save the world. It's a thunderously powerful moment and should have been saved for the climax instead of whatever the hell beast Gohan ended up being. And that is every fight ranked. Well, okay, except for Daima. But I had a thought, right? Instead of ranking those now, let's see if any surprise entries crash my top 20 video next week. Will Daima make the cut? Find out when I rank the greatest Dragon Ball fights of all time. Once again, be sure to check out Silver and Blood Requiem if you're looking for a quality RPG on the go. Scan the QR code on screen or hit the link in the description to get started. But for now, I will catch you in the next video.
So he's gone, I'm not necessarily going to do a whole video of Daima, but if I like any of the Daima fights, they might end up in the top 20 fight that's finishing off the series. That's fine. So that's fine. That's cool. Some really good fights in Super. Not as many high ranking, though, so I am intrigued to see what we got in the top 20, which we will check out next. And then we got the Dan to Dan review for Season 1. I think it's covering Season 1. And then we're up to date, because Mark did his whole thing, this video explaining stuff, and I felt a bit sad watching it, but poor guy, he's been going through a lot that he's not been really sharing, and totally get where he's coming from with the change, so all for it. Can't wait to see what he does in the future. But yeah, we'll check out the top 20 fights, the Dan Dan review, and then I got a video I'm going to be checking out in December, because there's a series I'm finally finishing off. And there's a video from Mark, a video from Mother's Basement, and a video from Gigok, all covering said series. So, thought it'd be fun to check all three of those out in December time, Christmas time, once I finally finish that off. But yeah, thanks for watching.